What if everything you've been taught about death, about the soul, about what happens after we leave this world, was only a sliver of the truth? What if the silence you feel at night, that haunting pull behind your thoughts, isn't emptiness, but a memory? Not of this life, but of what came before, and what comes next. I know this not as a theory, but as something I lived. In 1944, I died. My heart stopped. The room around me disappeared. The body I had always believed was me dissolved into silence. And yet, I was not gone. I became more alive than I had ever been. I hovered above the earth, looking down at that fragile blue sphere, and I felt nothing but peace. A peace so complete it made every ambition, every fear, every name I had ever carried feel like a costume I had outgrown. Then something pulled me further, beyond time, beyond thought. I entered a place I can only call the temple of the soul. It was not made of matter. It was made of light. Not the kind you see with the eyes, but the kind that reveals the truth. There I saw clearly. The self I had spent my life studying was only the surface. What we call the ego, the persona, the mind, it is a mask. A necessary one, yes, but a mask nonetheless. What lies beyond it is not fantasy. It is the eternal self. The part of you that watches, that waits, that never began and never ends. I had studied mythology, dreams, the unconscious for decades, but nothing prepared me for this. And I was not shown symbols. I was shown reality. I was told, by a presence beyond words, that life is a school for the soul. That pain is not a punishment, but a doorway. That death is not an end, but a return. I was not allowed to stay. I was sent back trembling, changed. And for years I spoke of it only in riddles, in symbols, in the language of depth psychology. But now I speak plainly. You are not who you think you are. You are not your name, your past, your wounds. You are the soul who watched all of it unfold, and who will continue to watch long after this chapter ends. If you're still here, still listening, then something in you already knows this is true. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to remember, because the veil is thinning, and the door has already begun to open. After I returned from that place, what many would call the afterlife, I began to see the world differently. Not as a scientist, not as a psychologist, but as a soul who had glimpsed behind the curtain. I could no longer pretend that life was only matter and time, cause and effect. I had seen too much. I had felt what lies beneath the surface of all things. The veil between this world and the next is thinner than you think. It is not made of distance, but of awareness. Most people live their entire lives without realizing how close they truly are to the beyond. They distract themselves with noise, with identities, with fear. But sometimes, through loss, illness, or strange silence, the veil shifts. Something peeks through, a dream too vivid to dismiss, a presence in an empty room, a knowing that has no source. These are not delusions. They are invitations. The unconscious does not speak in lectures. It whispers through symbols. It uses your life, your pain, your patterns, your longings, as language. And if you learn to listen, you will begin to hear it everywhere. After my near-death experience, I noticed a strange pattern. People who came to me for help were no longer just seeking relief. They were being pulled by something deeper. They would say, "I don't know why, but I feel something is missing," or "I had a dream I can't forget." They were being called by their own souls. And behind that call was the same light I had seen. This light is not always comforting. It doesn't flatter your ego. It shows you what you've hidden, what you've feared, what you've denied. It breaks you open so that something real can emerge. And this, too, is a kind of death. The death of illusion, of false identity, of the persona you've worn for survival. But let me be clear, this is not destruction, it is transformation. In alchemy, lead must be burned before it becomes gold. The soul too must pass through fire, through loss, through ego death. Only then does it begin to remember itself. And when you begin to remember, the world begins to shift. You notice synchronicities, those uncanny alignments between outer events and inner truths. You meet people who feel familiar, though you've never known them. You hear words that pierce straight through your defenses and speak directly to something ancient inside you. This is not chance. It is the soul guiding you. The veil thins when you are ready, not when your mind believes it, but when your spirit aches for it. And once you've seen through it, even for a moment, you can never return to who you were before. This is what I discovered, not through books, not through study, but through dying and coming back. The soul is real, the afterlife is real, but they are not far. They are here right now behind the veil you're only just beginning to see through. When I crossed that threshold, I did not take my name with me. I did not carry my achievements, my theories, my reputation. All of it remained behind like an old coat draped over a chair. What moved forward was not Carl Jung, the thinker. It was something older, deeper, something I can only call the eternal self. This self did not ask questions in the way the ego does. It did not seek meaning because it was meaning. It did not speak in words because it did not need them. I became awareness without boundary. I remembered not events, but essence. Not who I was, but what I am. And what I am, you are too. There is a self within you that cannot be broken, cannot be lost, cannot be defined by trauma, titles, or timelines. Most never meet it in life because they are too busy surviving as the false self, the persona, the mask you wear to be accepted, to be seen, to be safe. But beneath that mask is your true face, the one you had before the world told you who to be. In that place beyond death, I saw with perfect clarity, not through eyes, but through recognition. I encountered presences that had no bodies, yet were more real than any flesh. I knew them, though I had never met them on earth. One was my father. One was a child I never had. Another, a part of myself that had remained silent during life. The ego sees time as linear, birth, life, death. But the eternal self sees it differently, as layers, as spirals, as echoes repeating until we learn what they came to teach. And this is the greatest secret I can share with you. Not all of you is here, only a part. The rest waits just beyond your perception, watching, guiding, longing for reunion. What we call the unconscious is not just a storehouse of memories or desires. It is a bridge, a temple, a mirror. It holds the blueprint of your becoming, not just for this life, but for every life your soul has ever touched. And when you dare to look inward with courage, when you descend into yourself, you begin to remember. This is why individuation is not self-improvement. It is self-retrieval. You do not become something new. You reclaim what has always been hidden inside you. The shadow, yes, the disowned, rejected parts, but also the divine, the timeless, the light that knows no fear. And here is the paradox. The more you remember who you truly are, the more you lose your fear of death, because you realize you were never just this body, this story, this moment. You were always the witness behind the experience. And when the body falls away, the witness remains. This is not a belief. It is a knowing. And once you know, truly know, nothing can unsettle you in the same way again. Not rejection, not loss, not even the end. Because now you see, not as the mask, but as the soul behind it. And the soul cannot die. As I was pulled back into the world of the living, there was one final vision, one that did not leave me, even after the fever subsided, even after the hospital lights replaced the light I had known in that other realm. It was a glimpse of what was yet to come, a world not of dreams, but of possibilities. I saw a veil, thin as silk, stretched between dimensions, and I saw that in the time ahead, this veil would begin to tear. You feel it, don't you? That something is shifting, that the boundary between the seen and the unseen is not as solid as it once seemed. Strange dreams that feel more like memories, coincidences too precise to be random, a feeling that someone is watching, not with malice but with recognition. This is not imagination, this is awakening. We are entering an era in which the unconscious will rise, the collective shadow will emerge, what has been hidden will demand to be seen, and those who cling only to rationality will suffer, not because they are wrong, but because they are unprepared. The psyche is not content with partial truths. It seeks wholeness. And when the veil thins, all that was suppressed comes forth. I saw people begin to feel what they had forgotten, the presence of ancestors, the weight of archetypes, the pull of the soul. Some rejoiced, others resisted. And that resistance, Oh, it created chaos. For when truth knocks and the door is locked, it does not retreat, it breaks through. You may already feel this within yourself. A growing discomfort with surface-level living, a longing for depth that no achievement or pleasure seems to satisfy. That is the call of the self. It is not content to remain a whisper. It will become a roar. And with this thinning of the veil, the question becomes, are you ready? Ready to stop seeing only with your eyes? Ready to stop living only from the persona? Ready to meet what has been waiting behind your reflection all along? The soul does not knock forever. At some point, it asks for an answer. Yes or no. Will you stay asleep or will you wake? This is the invitation of our time, not just to think differently, but to see differently, to feel the sacred in the mundane, to sense the eternal in each passing moment. The veil is thinning not to frighten us, but to free us. Yet freedom, real freedom, demands responsibility. You must hold your own soul with reverence. You must confront your own darkness without flinching. And you must understand, when the veil lifts, you will see not only beauty, you will see shadow, you will see everything you have denied, but you will also see who you truly are. And once that seeing begins, there is no going back. Not because you are forced, but because your old life no longer fits. Your old fears no longer persuade you. Your old chains no longer hold. You are being called beyond the veil, not to escape, but to return whole. When the veil thins and your soul begins to stir, the world around you does not always rejoice. In fact, it often recoils. And this is something I must prepare you for, because the moment you begin to remember who you truly are, something in others begins to tremble. Not because you are a threat, but because your presence makes it harder for them to remain asleep. You see, most people do not fear darkness. They fear light. They fear someone who can no longer be manipulated by guilt, someone who no longer plays the roles assigned to them, someone who dares to withdraw from the persona and live from the self. Your wholeness, your clarity, your grounded peace, it disturbs those who still survive on fragmentation. They may not say it aloud, but they feel it. When you walk into the room without wearing a mask, it reminds them of how long they've worn theirs. When you stop seeking approval, it forces them to question why they crave it. When you begin to speak truthfully, calmly, without the need to defend or attack, their illusions begin to fracture. This is the moment when they may turn away from you, not because you've wronged them, but because your evolution confronts their inertia. They may say you've changed. They may accuse you of coldness or arrogance. But do not let their discomfort distract you. You are not responsible for protecting others from your transformation. There is a quiet violence in staying small to keep others comfortable. I beg you, do not shrink. Let your clarity be misunderstood. Let your peace be unsettling. Let your authenticity be provocative. This is not cruelty. This is spiritual hygiene. Many speak of love, but few can handle the presence of someone who truly loves themselves. Because self-love is not softness. It is power. It is boundaries. It is saying no without explanation. It is refusing to betray the soul just to feel included. So yes, your light will disturb those who depend on your darkness. And yes, your awakening may cost you the roles and relationships that once defined you. But this loss is not punishment. It is purification. When you stand as your whole self, you give others a choice. They can rise to meet you, or they can fall back into slumber. That is their path, not yours to control. You are not here to be palatable. You are here to be real. The fear they feel in your presence is not about you. It is about their own exiled parts, the shadows they have yet to face. And when they see someone who has walked into the dark and returned with truth, they do not see you. They see what they are avoiding. So if they retreat, let them. If they attack, do not retaliate. Hold your center. Keep walking. Because the moment you stop being available to distortion, manipulation, and false connection, everything changes. You do not lose your life. You reclaim it. You must understand, wholeness is not given freely. It demands a price. And the currency is not gold or obedience. It is everything that is false within you. The moment you commit to becoming whole, life will begin to strip you of illusions, of masks, of identities you outgrew long ago but continued wearing for the sake of approval. This is why the path of individuation is not crowded. It requires more than knowledge. It requires surrender. The willingness to give up the roles that once made you feel safe. The courage to step away from the familiar chaos that gave your pain a home. The strength to walk alone for a time while others cling to their stories. You will lose people, that is certain. But do not call it abandonment, call it alignment. What cannot meet you in truth will fall away. And that is not cruelty, it is clarity. You were never meant to carry connections that thrive only when you betray yourself. The pain of letting go is temporary, but the ache of self-abandonment lingers for a lifetime. You cannot be whole and continue to edit yourself to stay digestible. Wholeness is not a performance. It is not pleasing. It is not passive. It is a quiet, unshakable fidelity to what is real inside you. And make no mistake, this path will test you. You will be misunderstood, judged, labeled. But every time you remain faithful to your inner truth, you reclaim a fragment of the soul you once lost to the expectations of others. The world will tempt you to compromise. It will offer comfort in exchange for your authenticity. And if you resist that seduction, you will feel the silence grow around you. But this silence is not emptiness. It is space for the real to emerge. You cannot hold your center and please everyone. You cannot speak your truth and be adored by all. You cannot carry your light and still be invisible to those who fear their own shadows. There will come a moment, and perhaps it has already arrived, when you will feel torn between staying available to what you've outgrown or stepping fully into the unknown. In that moment, choose yourself. Not the persona, not the old patterns, not the applause. You. Because no one else can walk this path for you. No one else will pay the price of your wholeness. It is yours to offer, and it is yours to receive. So when the world pulls at you, when it tries to drag you back into the old dance, let your silence speak. Let your boundaries be a prayer. Let your no be a sacred act. They will not understand, but your soul will. And in that quiet knowing, you will begin to taste a freedom no performance could ever give. The freedom of being fully, unapologetically, irreversibly yourself. Let me tell you something most will never admit. The more you integrate, the more others will project. Not because you have become threatening in form, but because you have become threatening in essence. Your energy no longer contorts to match theirs. Your presence reflects back everything they are hiding from themselves. You think it's your voice, your choices, your distance that upsets them. It is your coherence, your refusal to remain fractured just to be palatable. When you stop fragmenting yourself for the sake of belonging, you expose the fractures in everyone else. That is what disturbs them, not your truth, but their disconnection. The integrated person is not loud, they are not chaotic, but they carry a quiet intensity that unsettles those who still rely on personas to navigate life. You become a walking mirror, and mirrors, when honest, are rarely welcomed, especially by those who spend their lives avoiding their reflection. So they will call you cold when you stop absorbing their pain, arrogant when you stop apologizing for your boundaries, difficult when you refuse to play along with their illusions. They will accuse you of changing, and in a way, they are right. You have changed. You are no longer available for what drains you. When the shadow is integrated, it no longer seeks approval. It no longer asks for love it has not given to itself. It no longer waits for permission to exist. And this kind of power, the power that cannot be manipulated, terrifies those still clinging to the illusion of control. Do not confuse their discomfort for your misstep. It is not your job to shrink to soothe their unease. Their resistance is not your responsibility. It is your reflection. You do not need to explain your evolution to those who benefited from your confusion. You will know you are integrating when your peace becomes louder than your need to be understood, when your silence says more than your explanations ever could, when you walk into a room and feel no urge to perform, no instinct to protect the parts of you that were once shamed into hiding. This is the aura that disturbs, not your charisma, not your words, but your energy, clean, grounded, sovereign. It exposes everything that is still scattered in others, and so they react, some with admiration, others with projection, and some with disappearance. But let them go. Let them misunderstand. Your task is not to remain digestible. It is to become whole. You did not do all this inner work to stay lovable by those who only knew the version of you that was afraid. When you are no longer at war with yourself, you stop being at war with the world. But the world, still at war with itself, will try to pull you back in. Don't go. Stay anchored. Stay whole. Because the ones who are ready to meet you in truth, they will not be disturbed. They will recognize you. There comes a moment, often unnoticed, when something inside you stops chasing. Not because you've given up, but because you've returned. Returned to yourself. It feels like stillness, but it is not passive. It is magnetic. It is not silence out of defeat, but silence forged from depth. And that is when your energy shifts in a way that cannot be faked. People will feel it before you even speak. They won't know what changed, but they'll feel something they can't quite name. Some will be drawn to it like a compass to true north. Others will flee, sensing that in your presence they can no longer pretend. Because magnetic stillness is not loud. It doesn't demand attention. It commands it, without force, without effort. This is the paradox. The more you withdraw from the noise, the more powerful your presence becomes. The less you explain yourself, the clearer your truth becomes. The more you honor your own rhythm, the more others will notice you without understanding why. Jung called this individuation, the process by which the self emerges from the shadows of conditioning, no longer enslaved to roles, personas, or projections. And when that self is fully inhabited, it radiates something unmistakable, inner coherence. That coherence is rare. It is unnerving. Because most people walk through life split between who they are and who they perform to be. When you are no longer performing, you mirror their performance. Not with words, but with your being. Magnetic stillness doesn't need to argue. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't reach. It receives. It allows. It watches. And in that calm presence, the storm inside others becomes visible. Some will find healing in that. Others will feel exposed, not by what you say, but by what you no longer tolerate. And here lies the deepest truth. Your aura becomes most powerful, not when you shine brightly for others, but when you no longer dim it for their comfort. Stillness isn't emptiness. It is fullness without chaos. It is clarity without explanation. It is power without resistance. They may ask, why are you so distant now? But they're not really asking about proximity. They're asking, why doesn't your soul orbit mine anymore? And the answer is simple. Because you are no longer seeking home in someone else's confusion. In this stillness, you do not lose connection. You find it. True connection. With yourself, with life, with those who recognize the quiet intensity of a soul that no longer abandons itself. You've stopped being available to perform, and now you've become a presence that cannot be ignored. This is the mystery of magnetic stillness. It is not what you do, it is what you no longer need to do, and that, more than anything, is what disturbs them. And now, here you stand, on the threshold, not just of a new behavior, but of a new identity, one that no longer seeks validation through overexertion, one that no longer equates love with sacrifice, one that understands this. Your power begins the moment you stop leaking your energy to what no longer resonates with your becoming. This isn't the end of the path. It's the beginning of the real one, the path of individuation, of claiming wholeness, of living from the inside out. And if you've made it here, it means something in you is ready, ready to stop being available to what drains you and become available to what aligns. If these words stirred something deep within you, don't let it fade. Share what spoke to you in the comments. Subscribe if you want to continue walking this path of truth, and leave a like, not just for the algorithm, but as a quiet, I'm here too. Because in this space, you are never walking alone. This is Carl Jung. I'll see you in the next one.